I've been in the martial arts now for over 60 years, and I've trained over 70,000 students. So it's something that I really enjoy doing.
That's really good, Mitz. Would you share with us your earliest childhood memory?
Okay. My earliest memory is that we were interned. The Japanese were interned during the Second World War. We were put into internment camps. That's my memory of that. And then growing up in an internment camp. And then the next big feature of that is when we were released after 5 years of internment, being told, just go home. But many of us didn't have a home. And so I remember my earliest recollection is my mother was taking me by the hand, and we'd go to motel after motel looking for a place to stay, and the door would be slammed in our face, and the woman would scream, Jap or whatever. And then my mom would take my hand, and we would go to the next place, and I would ask her, Mom, why did she say that? Why did she call us that name? And she said, I don't know, son. I don't know. But she knew. She didn't want me to become racist. She was that kind type of a person that wanted to teach me at a young age that racism and hatred is wrong. And then when we saw signs on doors saying no dogs or Japs allowed, she would look at the sign and then walk off, and I'd say, Mom, what did that sign say? And she would say, I don't know, son. I don't know. Well, what I can really say about my youth is I had a mother that taught me to be decent, to be kind, and not racist. She taught me all of those things, so I appreciate that. That was my earliest recollections,
Share with us your worst childhood memory.
My worst childhood memory. Well, to tell you the truth, I can recall one that's stuck with me for all these years. When I was coming home from school, elementary school, with my sister, my younger sister, I don't know why, but this big guy, at that time he was big, he's probably small now, but this big Caucasian guy came up, and I thought he was going to, just be friendly. But he punched me, and I hit the ground, wondering, why did he hit me? And then he takes me in a side headlock, and now he's punching me in the head, and now I'm begging for mercy, saying, please don't hurt me, don't hurt me. And the thing is, after he took me down and he held my face into the ground and was laughing, and the others who were around were also laughing, he let me up. And all that time my little sister's screaming, you better not hurt my brother, you better hurt. And so with tears in my eyes, and they were all laughing, I'm walking home. But I made a promise to myself, I will never, ever, ever be this humiliated again. And now the other thing was in front of my sister, of all things, to be put in that position. I said, never again. I will never. And to tell you the truth, I have never been put in that position. So that little prediction I made for myself when I was a young man, just furious for what happened to me, I think helped me to really become good in the martial arts.
That reminds me of a story regarding Bruce Lee. He was also beat up as a teenager, and he said the same thing, I will never lose again. And he never did, from what we've heard.
It strengthens you.
It was my understanding that in the 1950s there was talk radio, and they had a particular subject that they were talking about, and it made an influence on you at 13 years of age. Right. You want to share that with us?
Right. Well, it was one of those days when I was sick, and my father was on the farm, and of course I was helping him on the farm. That particular day I was in bed and listening to the radio, and the instructor, they had a martial art instructor on there, said, I have a boy that's 13 years old, was my age, who took on 3 of the bullies and defeated them very easily. And I thought to myself, that's impossible. One boy cannot take on 3. You just can't do it. So it became a real passion of mine, and I started asking friends, have you ever heard of this art called Aikido? Because that's what the instructor mentioned his student knew. And none of my friends knew. They said, well, we know judo and karate, but Aikido, I've never heard of it. Neither had most of the Japanese community people when I would go and ask them. have you heard of Aikido? They said, no, we don't know about Aikido. So I put the watch out, and I told my friends, keep your eye open. If you see a school with an Aikido sign on, let me know. And so that was the quest. And when I was in high school, one of my friends came up to me and said, Mitz, remember for years and years you were looking for a school called Aikido? I said, yes, I'm looking for it. He says, I found it. It's in Lomita. And that was the beginning of my Aikido quest.
It's our understanding that you've trained a lot of police officers over the years.
Yes, because I was the head police defense tactics instructor at El Camino for 30 years. I've trained every level of police officers. That goes from highway patrol, that goes LAPD, sheriffs, even FBI, and a lot of the smaller divisions, departments along the Pacific coast. And so I've had a lot of dealings with them, but I think the most interesting thing is training police for 30 years, you always get good feedback. And I remember this one police officer, he said that, and this is, I won't mention the department, he said there was a police officer from this unnamed department who was mad at his girlfriend. And he said he was busting her window in her car, just smashing her window. And he said, I happened to be driving by and I saw that, I jumped out, I went over, and he was ready to pound into the window when I grabbed his arm like you taught me, and I twisted his wrist, and I took him to the ground, and I held him there in the pin, and he's screaming, he's going to kill me. And then I mentioned, hey, I'm one of you. I'm a police officer too, so relax, just go along with the program. And he did. And I think to this day they're good friends. But it could have been serious. He could have done some real serious damage if he didn't know the techniques that I knew. So,
were there any police officers that specifically may have said, yes, it helped save my life, or I used it in a combative situation, in a crime incident, or anything like that by any chance?
There were many. There are many situations like that, and especially the twist locks of the arm. A lot of disturbance of the husband and wife problems are the worst. And when you go in there, the wife even attacks you. So the officers told me, they were able to use that twist lock to control one of the suspects and take him out of the danger area.
Universal Studios' very first self-defense video, they worked with you to make that happen. And we also understand that you made a self-defense system called the Mitson system. It was specifically designed for women, and the Los Angeles Commission on Assaults Against Women use it in many of their rape centers. And how was that experience for you?
Well, the experience was quite unusual. It all came about because at the internationals, the Long Beach Internationals Karate Championships, I was introduced to a man named Andrew Wilson. And he was the one that inspired me because of his energy, his determination, and his ability to make things happen. And first time, you can say, well, I've met a lot of people in the martial art, but nobody had the energy of this man. He was unusual, just unusual, and to this day he's unusual. But I owe my video, the Mitson system, to Andrew Wilson because he said, let's do something. And we got together, we went to a restaurant, we started jotting it out, writing, and we kept saying, this is for the women. This is for women because they need self-defense, something simple, something practical, something they can use right away. It can't be complicated. And that was the whole format of coming up with the Mitson system so that every woman looking at it can say it works. And I know it does work, yeah. Because when I was presenting that to my class at the university, they looked at it, and a lot of the women in the audience looking were doing the moves. They were shadowing the moves, and I said, aha, that's it. That's it. If they can shadow the moves, they'll do it on their own at home. So I was very pleased with the Mitson system. It's an outstanding form of self-defense for ladies.
Share with us your biggest moment, specifically in the martial arts. I know there's been many, but what is your biggest moment, a personal moment for you?
I think, for me, the most important moment was when I met the Grand Master of Aikido, Gozo Shioda. He was the the figurehead. He was the reason why I studied Aikido, although when I started, I didn't know why I was studying the art. But after I got to reading about him, hearing about him, I got more excited. And then one day I was able to meet him. And not only was I able to meet him, ask him any question I wanted to about techniques. And he told me the technique that will make you the most effective and the strongest is what they call the Shihan exercise, which is what we call the elbow power exercise. We do that drill every session. It's a kata, it's a form that is unique to the art of Yoshinkan Aikido. You don't see it in any other form of Aikido. And he told me at that time, if you want to get good in Aikido, practice these forms until you're sick of them, and then keep practicing because it will make you better. Now, here it is, 40 years later, after he told me that, at a restaurant one evening, I'm starting to realize what he's saying, that there's a lot to that particular form, because I thought it was just gymnastics, just swinging your arms around and moving from one part of the room, turning, spinning. I realize now when he said, if you practice it correctly, diligently, your hips will get stronger, your legs will get stronger, your body will move as a unit. And that's what the thing is, I wasn't understanding until I really got into it. And now I can say to my students, this is an important exercise. The master told me why, and I know why now. Because it makes your whole body work as a unit, and you become very, very strong.
Now, there was an incident you shared about Shioto and breaking an opponent's arm that was giving him a hard time and tried to take advantage of him and belittle him. And this little 5'1" Aikido master taught him a lesson. Share that with us.
That's interesting. Master Shioto is small, 5'1", maybe 108 pounds soaking wet. When I first met him, I was looking down at him thinking, is this really the master, the grand master around the world, considered the Superman of Yoshinkan Aikido? And so looking at him, I was wondering, and then I heard a story that when he was putting on a demonstration in Japan in front of the judo organization, and the judo people really looked down upon Aikido as kind of a weak art. And here, Master Shioda was putting on a demonstration in front of the longshoremen. These were longshoremen who are all judo trained, and the head of the judo team was there, and they had their arms crossed looking at this little guy like to say, what are you going to show me? You know, what are you going to show us? Powerful, 6 foot, 5'9", 5'8", 200 pounds, 230 pound judo man. What are you going to do at 108 pounds? Well, Shioda said, I picked the strongest man, which was their instructor, and I called him out. And he said, okay, let's go. And he said, I understand judo. The judo instructor came and grabbed my lapel, and he said, I gave him a quick distraction, and then I spun into a technique that we call the Shiho, which is a figure 4 arm lock. And he said, I got it on him very quickly, but he resisted because his team was there. They were all looking at their master, and he wasn't going to let him down, so he wouldn't go down. And on that technique, to save your arm, you have to take a fall. He wouldn't take a fall. He stood there, and Master Shioda said, I heard crunching, popping sounds in his shoulder. And he said, I knew I had dislocated his shoulder and his elbow. And so I let him go, and the judo master bowed to me and quickly left the stage. So he says, yeah, I dislocated his elbow and probably his shoulder. And I'm thinking, this has got to be a strong man, because I met that judo man. I met him years later. Powerful, 5'7". He had 17-inch arms. He was 230 pounds. To look at him, you'd think you'd have to run him over with a Sherman tank to stop him. And I'm thinking, the 101-pound master of Aikido broke his arm. It was phenomenal.
There's a famous story that has been widespread regarding Kano, the father of judo in Japan.
Yeah.
And Funakoshi, the father of karate in Japan. Share that story with us.
Well, it was something I read a long time ago. It's a touching story of two masters. Master Kano is the known the head man of judo around the world. And Master Funakoshi is considered the head man or the top man of the art of karate, Okinawan karate. And the story goes that when the karate master came from Okinawa visiting Japan to spread the art of karate to the Japanese people, he wasn't well received. But Kano, the judo master, saw potential and had him put on a demonstration. And it was a beautiful demonstration. A lot of the martial artists didn't buy into it in Japan at that time. And so the story goes that Master Funakoshi struggled. For years and years he could not get his art going. And he would come, night after night and visit the father of judo, Kano, and kind of cry on his shoulder saying, I think I'm going to go back to Okinawa. I can't get this art going. No one seems to appreciate it. And it was Kano, the father of judo, who kept telling him, no, hang in there. It's good. Once the people catch on to it, once the people realize the potential of karate, they're going to really like it. So you hang in there because I like it. When I saw the first demonstration you gave, I was thrilled. But the thing is, it's hard to sell an art to the Japanese public. So he says, keep going. Well, Funakoshi kept going. And today, his art is huge in Japan. Just huge. And the thing that is most memorable is it states that Funakoshi, the father of Japanese karate, every time he would pass the judo studio, he would tell his driver to stop, he would get out of his car, and he would bow toward the judo building. And his students would come out and say, Master, that's not a karate school, that's a judo school. Why do we have to bow to that? And he told them, if it wasn't for that man being kind to me over these years, helping me out when nothing was working, we would not have Shotokan karate in Japan today. I owe everything to that man. So what it indicated to me was the brotherhood of great martial artists in the old days, how they came together and helped each other. My particular experience of that was when Master Shioda was visiting here, and he asked me to make a phone call to Master Nishiyama. Now Nishiyama was my idol. He was the karate great. He was a phenomenal karate man, 6 times undefeated, 6 times All Japan karate champion. He was built phenomenally well. I envied his musculature, the way he carried himself. He looked like a samurai. He was a powerhouse on 2 feet. And so when Master Shioda said, could you call him on the phone? I'm going to have sushi at this particular restaurant. Do you think he will come? Just give him a call. And I thought to myself, he won't come. He's too powerful. Master Nishiyama is the master of karate. And so I got the number and I called Master Nishiyama and I said, Master Nishiyama, you don't know me, but I'm a student of Gozo Shioda. And he goes, Shioda? He got excited. I thought, okay, this is great. He says, you know Shioda? I said, yes, he's our Grand Master. He goes, oh, Shioda, okay. And I said, he wants you to meet him at this restaurant. And I gave the address. Master Nishiyama, the great karate master, was there in no time. And they started talking. They were like lost brothers. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, these are 2 different disciplines. Shioda is Aikido, Nishiyama is karate. What is it that they found that could bring them together? It was mutual respect. Nishiyama respected Shioda because I'm sure he saw Master Shioda's demonstrations and tossing people around. And Master Shioda saw Nishiyama winning his 6th All Japan Championships, and they had a mutual respect for one another. And that's what I think it should be in the martial art, that we really learn to respect each other.
What was your greatest inspiration in the martial arts?
Well, when people ask me Shihan Mitz, what encouraged you to get into the martial art? Who was your best influence, your mentor? Was it Bruce Lee? Was it Chuck Norris? Was it Ed Parker? Who was it? And I have to tell them it was neither of those people. And they said, well, what inspired you to go into the martial arts? And I had to tell them it was my mother. And I get a big cackling in the class, oh, his mother, this and that. And I said, no, and the reason I say that is this, that I know a lot of people who are phenomenally strong physically. They can lift a lot of weights, and they may be able to run a long distance. They may be able to bicycle. Those are just physical strengths. But I've come to realize now at this stage in my life, it's not physical strength that makes you a great human being or a woman. It's your inner strength. It's what makes you or enables you to take tremendous pressure and stress and keep going. It would be like somebody who loses his wife in an accident or a child and keeps going. And you're thinking, well, that's amazing. Or a man that loses his house or loses all his money or gets sick with a serious illness, and yet they carry on in such a way that you say, if that happens to me, I want to be like that. That's who I'm going to be. And that's what I think the martial art trains us to be, to go beyond the physical into the spiritual or the mental, where you are the strongest. So, getting to my mother, I tell them, one day, I asked my mother, and I was a young man, I was only about 5, because we just got out of the internment camps, and I said, Mom, tell me how my older brother and sister died. And she became very quiet. A lot of mothers won't tell you. A lot of mothers will say, don't ask me that. It's bringing up too many bad memories. I don't want to talk about it. She was very calm about it, and she said, okay. Your cousin came over one day on the farm. He had his truck, and he said, Mrs. Yamashita, I want to take your brother and, I want to take your son and daughter to Gardena. That was my older brother and sister. My older brother was 6 years old, and my sister was 7. So 7 and 6 years old, those were her kids. Well, my sister jumped in the truck and said, I want to go. But my older brother said, I don't want to go. And my mother kept saying, Kyoshi, listen, your cousin came a long ways. It's only polite for you to go. It was, I don't want to go. And she goes, why not? It was, I want to play with my football. And she goes, oh, so she grabbed the football in one hand, took him by the hand the other, and walked him into the backyard where there was a swing. And she said, look, son, I'm going to put this football right here on the swing. And when you get back today, you can play with it. And so she ushered on a coat, put a coat on him, pushed him into the truck, waved goodbye to all 3 as they took off, and never saw them again. They all 3 died. That was the painful part. Now my mother was saying that, that on the day of their death, she was visiting a friend, a neighbor, having coffee or tea or whatever. And she said at the moment of that accident, she didn't hear it, she didn't see it, but she said, I think it's a mother's instinct to know when her kids are in trouble. She said a jolt went through her body. And so she told the lady of the house, I'm sorry, I have to go. And the lady said, Mrs. Yamashita, you just got here. Come on, relax. Have another cup of tea. She goes, no, I can't. Something's wrong. And so she said, I'm sorry, I have to go. So she went running outside. She said there was a dusty road going east and west. And she took off west, running. And she said, I didn't know why I was running, but I was running. And then halfway there, a farmer grabbed her and said, Mrs. Yamashita, you don't want to go down there. Something terrible has happened. And she said, I knew they were gone. I knew they were dead. My father was working in that area at the time of the accident. What happened was, at that time, it was called the red line. Right now it's called the blue line. It's a streetcar. And there were no switches, there were no arms that came down to tell you that a streetcar was coming. No warning of any kind. And my cousin didn't see it because there were huge obstacles in the path. He didn't see the red line coming. And he went across the street, and the red line, the streetcar hit him, tore his truck a quarter mile down the road, dragged my brother and sister down the tracks. And my father, who was working at that time, said he was there. Yeah. Um, so it was a tragic thing for him to have to see that too. So.
How did your mother and father react to this tragic situation?
Well, it was tragic, but my mother was the one that amazed me the most with her inner strength, because when she was telling me the story of how my sister and brother passed away, she said, you know, the hardest part for me, for 6 months I couldn't go to the backyard. And I said, oh, why, Mom? Why was it hard? She was, the football was there. And I said, it's just the football. She was, no, son, it wasn't just the football. It was her inner guilt. Had she not forced her son to go, she would have had two, at least one of her children alive. But she forced them both to go, and the guilt and the feeling of pain for any mother must have been unbearable. And so she said very calmly to me, you don't understand now, son, but when you get older, you will. You will understand. And when I got older, I did understand that here is a woman that went through tremendous suffering, and yet she never screamed at me, never said, shut up, I don't want to talk about it, it's too painful. Very calmly she told me. And then I said, how about those men at the train depot that beat up Dad? They hit Dad and they kept him away from the accident scene. And she said, it was an accident, son. It was just an accident. She never blamed anybody. She never blamed anybody for anything. And she really taught me a great lesson as a young man, that hatred and anger is wrong. And she never, never taught me that. And so it was a great lesson that I tell my students, you know, your children are watching, be careful what you say, and be strong, because they're going to mimic you. They're going to try to be like you. And that's what my mother did for me. She gave me inner strength. So I'm very grateful to that. Yeah.
What would be a final message, just speaking from the heart, you'd like to share with your students, your viewers watching this, that just tells a little bit about mitts and your final message?
Well, I can say this. In all the years that I've been studying, learning the martial arts, in the beginning it was to be able to fight people and to win, and to be, you know, have our egos really embellished, winning trophies and getting a lot of certificates and being recognized as the best. I thought that was the most important thing. But as we get older, I'm sure I'm not speaking just for myself, all great martial artists will reach a stage in which they realize that it's compassion, it's kindness, it's being gentle, it's being understanding and appreciative of your fellow man, even those you may not like, even those who caused you nothing but consternation all your life. It's a matter of forgiving them, and in the process of doing that, you become stronger. You strengthen your spirit, and that's the important thing. It's your spirit that's what counts.